B1 brothers and sisters, welcome to Blacklogic. When white supremacy backfires, we understand that South Africans and foundational Black Americans have somewhat of a similar past and somewhat of a similar present. There are some nuances that are very different, but there's a lot of things that are the same. So this video we're going to kind of quickly go through is a view of South Africa 2 years ago as the and I don't want to say Black South Africans, but because there's really no such thing as a white South African. They were invaders, they were enslavers, they were colonizers. So essentially, the South Africans are been rising up ever since 1994, ever since Nelson Mandela became president, ever since the apartheid ended. But the 10% of the population, anywhere from 8 to 10% of the population, is of what they call the Boer, or the white Afrikaners, that have colonized and generationally have colonized South Africa for quite some time, ever since the mid 1600s, when the Dutch East Indian Company first made the trading port on the borders of South Africa. But here's a small snippet of some occurrences that have been happening in South Africa for quite some time. And this is important to foundational Black Americans, because as we look at another people who went through somewhat of a similar past and present, then we understand the things that happened on that Montgomery, Alabama boat dock is the unification of people coming together to fight back against the system of white supremacy. No sellouts, no coons, no buck dancing, and not to incite violence or to galvanize people for a fight, but to show that when we're unified, no one can stop us. When we're organized, no one can beat us. So these are the things that we have to keep inside of our forefront when these things occur to our people.
Save the businesses that provide them with jobs. But they can't count on the authorities. And the looters feel no sense of self-restraint.
Police fire rubber bullets, tear gas, but the looters are undeterred. There's not one shop here that hasn't been attacked and completely ransacked.
Later, we found the South African police minister, Becca.
And basically, they're showing some of the carnage that's been occurring ever since this time. But we know through South Africa, they've been going through a transformation where parties like the EEF, the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, behind Jonas Malema, has been trying to take back the confiscated land by the white South Africans through their descendancy. Okay, through colonization. Because when we look at this family, the colonization of South Africa were about white people, mostly the Dutch and the British. And this has been spanning for centuries, hundreds of years. Because as I stated before, the Dutch East Indian Company established a trading post in Cape Town, South Africa back in 1652, 1653. And this was the so-called beginning of the European settlement or the colonization in South Africa, right? Because the Dutch East Indian Company brought slaves from Indonesia as well as Madagascar. That's why in South Africa, you have a mix of the Sand people. They look kind of Asian. You see the dark Asian people. Look up the Bush people as well as the Sand people. But the British company took control of Cape Town back in 1975. During the French Revolutionary Wars, and the British eventually annexed the Cape Colony in 1806. There's a lot of history here that we're going to briefly go over and get down to the nitty-gritty of things. But the Boers, right, the so-called farmers, the white farmers, the Boers, the Afrikaners, or as we know them as the Dutch settlers from the Netherlands. See, they moved into the interior of South Africa back in the early 1830s, okay, 1800s, 1830s, around that time. And this was because they wanted to escape British rule and to bring up Elon Musk, because this is how this whole thing kind of spearheaded of them singing Kill the Boer song, which wasn't a song to go out and genocide white South Africans. That wasn't the case, family. This was a struggle song. Think about songs that we use through religions and through foundational Black American history to incite, survival. It was a survival song of struggle, meaning kill the apartheid, not so-called kill the people, but kill the apartheid. We have to look at these things very analytically. Now, when these Dutch came over, these Afrikaners came over, these people from the Netherlands came over, they wanted to escape British rule and established their own independent republics. Okay, and this kind of led what they call the Bloody Boer Wars of the 1880s and 1890s, where the Dutch was essentially fighting against the British. Long story short, the British left, gave them their independence, and allowed the Dutch from the Netherlands to further colonize the South African people and extrapolate and steal and rape them of their resources, as well as the people. They raped them of their land, they raped them of the diamonds, they raped them of gems, jewels, and gold. So essentially, not only did they colonize their country, but they took control of their politics. They took control of their military. They took control of the infrastructure. They took control of the economy. That is what's been going on, ladies and gentlemen. And we see here that the population of South Africa is 60 million people roughly. And the demographics of this, as my internet is very, very slow here today. Give me 1 second. But the breakdown is basically Black people in South Africa is around 80 to 85%. And then you have colors, which are mixed with black and white mostly. Okay, they're around 8%, and then you have 8 or 9%, and then you have the Boers, the white people in South Africa. You have them around 8 to 9% as well, and then you do have Indians and Asians, Chinese of sorts, and they're around roughly, let's say about 3 to 4%, give or take a couple of percent here and there. So this information is very important because Julius Malema, he got ousted by the ANC, which made him create his own party because he wanted South Africa to belong to the people in which it was originated from, and not the white men who came from the Netherlands, the Dutch, and the British, that which Elon Musk is. See, Elon Musk is an amalgamation and a mixture of British and Dutch. Look it up. But nonetheless, this is what Julius Malema is fighting for. Economic freedom fighters. It says it in the name.
If Helen was opposed to this for real, why didn't Helen join the case? Why didn't the DA join the case when I was taken to Equality Court? Why didn't the Freedom Front join the case if they are genuine? So I'm not going to over-explain myself, and no wrinkled Botox fake face shall make me over-explain myself. I will sing this song as in when I feel like.
The political slogan has, however, sparked unhappiness from some in the Afrikaner community as some white men arrived at the EFF headquarters. They were involved in a scuffle with EFF Secretary General Marshal Dlamini and Central Command team members Vianney Pambo and Snao Tambo. Malema said they should thank their lucky stars that they were not met with the full might of the party.
So at the time of uproar, we're noticing that a lot of people are now starting to fight back against the system of white supremacy, and those who upheld the system and those who are part of the system. See, when we look at South Africa, in 1948, the National Party came to power in South Africa and implemented a system of apartheid, a system of discrimination, a system of bias. And what this did was institutionalize racial segregation, similar to slavery and as well as similar to Jim Crow. And under apartheid, white people were given preferential treatment in all aspects of life, including education, housing, employment. And this led to a large increase in the white population of South Africa because those guys in the Netherlands and those British guys came over and was like, oh, we own South Africa. We have possession of the land. We have possession of the economics. We have possession of the infrastructure. They controlled and operated every facet of South Africa. But at the end of the apartheid in 1994, there has been a significant decrease in the number of white people living in South Africa. A lot of them took their riches, took their money, and head back to Europe. But there's still over 4 million white people living in the country, making up, as I stated before, around 8 to 9% of the population. This is significant because Nelson Mandela was in prison for his political activism against the apartheid government of South Africa. And because that 8 to 9% was the ruling class, they simply just locked up they simply locked up Nelson Mandela without any cause of him basically speaking out against the apartheid system, because he was the leader of the ANC at the time, which is called the African National Congress. And this was the primary anti-apartheid organization in South Africa. Now, the apartheid government saw that Mandela as a threat to their power, and this is why they imprisoned Nelson Mandela for 27 years. He was arrested first in 1962, how ironic, but he remained in prison for 27 years, family. He remained in prison because he spoke out against the system of apartheid. Does that remind you of anyone else? Not the 27 years, but the imprisonment of a person based upon them out speaking of segregation and racism, Martin Luther King. There's a lot of similarities between foundational Black Americans and South Africans. We're different, but there are similarities in our struggle. There's a similarity in the colonization of our people. There's similarity of the enslavement of our people and the stealing of resources. So there's a lot of things that we can understand and learn from one another and fight our battles on our own land, which America is the land of foundational Black America, because our ancestors are the one who built the country. Now, we understand that Nelson Mandela was released in 1990, and after the apartheid government began to, essentially try to gather themselves after the release of Nelson Mandela, he then led the ANC to victory in the first free elections in South Africa, and he became the first Black president of South Africa, where majority of the people in South Africa are Black. Think about this, the ruling class. The ruling class is anywhere from 8-9%, and they've been ruling South Africa for hundreds of years, ever since the mid-1600s. That is how we have to look at this. Now, I want to point out some things that Elon Musk essentially was saying on his Twitter. Give me a second here. It's always an issue. Give me 1 second, family. Hold on. Hold on. Here we go. And I want to get down to the nitty-gritty of this, because this is very important. It says here that tech billionaire Elon Musk, who is the owner and CEO of X, formerly known as Twitter, has accused EFF leader Julius Malema of prompting the genocide of white people in South Africa, which is 1,000% false. He did not do that, okay? Here in a tweet, they are openly pushing for genocide of white people in South Africa. You know why this is double-sided, family? Because before Elon Musk came to America, he was from South Africa. He gathered up his riches and his resources and the money that was extrapolated from those people and built billionaire companies, okay, billions and billions of dollars in America, all the sweat, blood, and tears of the money that was extrapolated from the Black South African people. But did he ever give back to those people? Did he help build the infrastructure? Did he go and relinquish land that was stolen by his forefathers of the Netherlands and the Dutch and the British and give it back to the Black South Africans? No, that he did not. So when you talk about white genocide, did you ever speak out against apartheid publicly? Did you do any restitution or reparations or restorative justice to those people? No, you did not. No, you did not. It says here that the IR form, which argued that Malema was guilty of exciting violence and hate speech by singing the controversial song. It's similar to when Colin Kaepernick, during the national anthem during football games, will get on his knee and put up a fist. That's a sign of struggle. That's a sign of empowerment. We're going to galvanize behind these symbolizing factors that could push a movement forward for us to make change in our country. We're the mass majority. And see, when I was in South Africa earlier this year, I spoke to many South Africans as well as people from Zimbabwe. And they were kind of giving me the environment, the behavior of certain people, and how some South Africans didn't want violence to occur. They didn't want violence at all. They just wanted things to politically change over the course of time. While there's another large portion of people who didn't mind violence. Now, violence is the last resort. But here's the one deciding factor, family, that we must understand from history. Power is never given, power is always taken. Take any story of power. Take any sort of a different sort of people invading a land, conquering the land, enslaving the people, and those people were then given their power back. Now, some of you are going to say, well, majority of Africa was colonized by Europeans, and then they gave them their independence. Yeah, they gave them the independence on paper, but they still control them economically. If you don't have economic freedom, you don't have freedom. You get what I'm trying to say? Because why is the mass majority in these African countries are black people suffering while white people and Asian people are living in these countries, living the best lives they ever lived? Why you think there's a mass exodus from China to Africa? Why you think at one point in time, not now, there was a mass exodus from the Netherlands and British in Iceland and Greenland going to South Africa? Because they was living their best life off the backs, blood, sweat, and tears, and the enslavement and colonization of those people in those countries. We have to understand the history behind this. It states here that in a landmark judgment, because they took them to court. Yeah, they took them to court. They said, you're trying to incite violence. You're trying to start genocide. So they took them to court. In a landmark judgment, the court ruled today that the air form failed to show that the song's lyrics contravene the Equality Act, okay, the Equality Act, or demonstrate a clear intention to harm or incitement. But the court ruled that declaring the song hate speech will curtail freedom of expression. Therefore, the court dismissed the song, dismissed that the song constitutes hate speech. In order, Afroforum must pay the legal costs. I see you, Jermaine Anderson. I see you, brother. Thank you. Yeah, I'm breaking it down today, family, because this is very important. Because a lot of people are like, well, how's their struggle and our struggle similar? Now, when we look at the belief in white supremacy, both apartheid and slavery were based on the belief that white people are superior to black people. That's the symbol of white supremacy. That is the system of white supremacy in a nutshell, that white people are superior to black people. Now, this belief justifies the denial of basic human rights. This is why people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King was trying to submit documents to the Inhumane Society, the National Humane Society, to come and eradicate Jim Crow at the time. But of course, we know that didn't happen. But when we look at the systemic things with apartheid, as well as slavery and Jim Crow, things that black people in general could not do, like vote or own property or have equal access to education and employment. But the use of violence and intimidation in the system of white supremacy showed us that white people thought and think they're superior to black people, simply because there's some differences in advanced weaponry by the way of gunpowder from the Asians and the guns that you made to slaughter and kill your own countrymen. Because when we look at both apartheid and slavery, they were enforced through violence and intimidation, because the South African government used the police and the military to suppress dissent. Not only did they have white generals and white police chiefs, but they were using the black South Africa because they outnumbered them, okay, 8-9 to 1, and incentivized those who played a role in white supremacy and the apartheid of their own people. Yeah, they had black cops and black military men, but they gave them incentives, they gave them trinkets, okay, same as well these buffer classes in America, okay, they would do the bidding of the white supremacist society in America. Again, these are very, very similar, family. And going back, the black South Africans who spoke out against apartheid, they were arrested, they were tortured, and they were killed. So in the United States, when we look at slave owners, they use violence to control their slaves. And black people who resisted slavery were often beaten, whipped, and killed. And when we think about segregation, the separation of black people and white people, apartheid and slavery both involve the physical separation of black and white people. So in South Africa, black people were forced to live in segregated areas called townships, and they were not allowed to enter white areas without a permit. Where are your freedom papers at, boy? Where are your freedom papers at? Where are your walking papers at? Okay. And then in the United States, black people were enslaved and forced to live on plantations. So you got townships and plantations, and they were not allowed to travel freely on their own property. See, the economic exploitation of black people in both apartheid and slavery were economically exploitative systems, because in South Africa, black people were paid low wages for their labor, and they were not allowed to own businesses. Think about that. Think about that, family. You're 80%, 85% of the population, and 8 to 9% of the population is the ruling and controlling class of your economics, of your segregation, of your colonization. These people, right? So in the United States, when we look at our past, slaves worked long hours for no pay, and they were not allowed to own property because they were property themselves. As a matter of fact, we wasn't even considered humans. We were 3/5 of the human. We were ape-like. So when we look at these similarities, there are some important differences between South African apartheid and U.S. slavery, right? Because apartheid was a system of institutionalized racism that was supported by the government, as well as slavery was, okay? While some may believe that the system of slavery in America was a private institution and that was not officially sanctioned by the government, I would have you to go read Dr. Claude Anderson books, not only Black Labor, White Wealth, but as well as Powernomics and some other books he had to describe how slavery was sanctioned and legalized by the U.S. government. That's what's really important here, family. So we understand that white supremacy is on a rise throughout the nation. But here's some things. Bear with me here. Give me 1 second while these screens pop up. I don't know what's going on with my internet connections today. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Now, I really wanted to play this, but I see that I'm having a lot of issues with my internet connection. So I'm just going to move on, family. I'm going to move on here. And you guys are familiar with the Jason Aldean song, Try That in a Small Town. And I know a lot of people, the video went viral in Montgomery, Alabama on the boat dock where there was a security guard, and I'm just waiting for this to do what it's doing. I apologize. In Montgomery, Alabama, a black security guard was charged with and in charge of boats coming, docking, and then parking. Coming from off the waterway, docking at the port, and then parking. So there was this harpoon boat that came into the port and unloaded and parked their boat, blocking any of the boats from entering the port and offloading people. So the black security guard asked them, could you park your boat over here so other boats can come off the waterway, port, and so they can offboard their passengers? The white people on the boat refused. So they got off the boat. The black security guard saw other boats trying to come in and offload people. He then proceeded to move their boat and tie it off in a parking spot. That ensued altercation verbally that led to physical violence against him. One-on-one fight led to 3 or 4 other white gentlemen coming to the aid of the other guy that was about to get his ass whooped, and they started to jump him. But again, I was really trying to play this, family. I see that I'm not having really any luck. I'm not having any luck. I have a really horrible internet connection. If you notice, I've been doing a lot of pre-recorded, and it's because of issues like this. Okay, I've been trying to deal with this for quite some time. Let's see if we can get this started here. See if we can get this going.
Sucker punch somebody on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I see that I'm gonna have major issues here this evening. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bypass this right here, and I'm going to move on. And hopefully I can play some some other videos here. But we understand that the system of white supremacy and those who support it, they was really getting charged up, motivated, energized by this Jason Aldean song. Try that in a small town. And they're talking about people getting sucker punched and this, that, and the other. Like, people are essentially not fighting fair, which is absolutely untrue, family. It's absolutely, unequivocally untrue. But this is how they use jokes. They use songs to speak messages to their people. So January 6th was just not a fluke. Okay, it just wasn't a fluke. We understand that Donald Trump are the ones who essentially galvanized them. And I'm looking up some more information, guys, because I hate the fact that my internet is absolutely working horribly slow. So just bear with me as I'm getting these things together for you guys, because I had a lot of things lined up. I thought I was going to be good to go, but I see that's not the case here. Give me 1 second here. 1 second. All right, let's see here. All right. So I came across this video of this lady here speaking out against the Jason Aldean song, and I think it's very important for you guys to hear this. Very, very important for you guys to hear this. Listen in on this.
It was absolutely hilarious.
Let me back it up. Let me back it up. You got to hear the beginning. Here we go.
What happened in Montgomery, Alabama was absolutely hilarious. Oh, y'all really let Jason Aldean gas your heads up, huh? That was your first mistake. You don't take fighting tips from a fake cowboy who wears bedazzled skinny jeans. I love to see it. You know those idiots were on the boat all day listening to that song on repeat. I can't wait, Bubba, till they try that in a small town. We'll show them. I've never seen a song taken away from a group of people so quickly in my life. You had a month. You had a good run. Oh, and I already know what the comments are going to say in this video. How could you celebrate violence? Both sides were wrong. You're causing a divide. Why can't we all just get along?
Yeah, you see, family, I'm having all sorts of issues here. But basically, she was making fun that they got their ass whooped. And see, this is the thing, family, that we've been saying in this space for a very long time. The unification and organization of Black people on one accord is the most strongest force in the universe. And when we gather together, our meager numbers, like we're only 14, 15% of the population. Okay, we're not going to keep talking about this white supremacist narrative of 13.4. We're around 14 to 15% of the population. And when we gathered our 14 to 15% together, we are very, very powerful. And let me show you, the discord of people speaking about toxic masculinity. I'm going to let Brother Rizza Islam break this down.
So masculinity is a problem because it is a condition where you will fight back, which is the #1 thing that they never wanted. Where there are masculine men, there are safer environments. And what do I mean? This whole toxic masculinity farce that people try to toss out here. The term toxic masculinity came from 2 Caucasian men. There we go again. Shepard Bliss and Robert J. Stoller. #2, if that term came out and then it became overshadowing of what masculinity is, it blurs the lines of what masculinity is and what it is not. So now what people perceive as masculinity is putting their hands on a woman. That's masculine. No, that's not what masculinity is. Masculinity would prevent a man from putting his hands on his woman. Masculinity protects the community. Masculinity raises and respects children. Masculinity secures women. Masculinity makes it to where you're not going to step over here and not get checked if you don't operate properly. That's what masculinity is. Toxicity is the opposite of masculinity. You can't even put those together, because the other thing is you knew it was an agenda because you never hear people talk about toxic femininity. But it's always toxic masculinity. Why? Because the agenda is to make the man weak, because if you have weak men, you have women who are not going to be able to be protected. So if they don't have their security, we'll be able to take control of them. It is the same tactic in a new package in this generation, where they are looking at make sure we are able to destroy them slowly but surely, and make sure they don't have any men to protect them. Even though women can protect themselves, they shouldn't have to. So masculinity is
absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. Shout out to Brother Riza Islam on those very, very powerful words. And, kind of the, breaking this down further before we get into this video, family. We understand that white supremacy is on the rise in the United States and, of course, around the world. And there is a serious threat to Black people. And the question always is, how do we respond to white supremacy? How do we respond? Well, the intellectual side of people will say we need to educate ourselves and others about white supremacy, because we know that it is very important to understand the history and the ideology of white supremacy in order to effectively counter it. And we can learn about white supremacy through our master teachers. We can learn it through books, articles, documentaries, and online resources, and of course, a whole slew of people in the Black empowerment space on YouTube and other online platforms. We can also talk about understanding the ideology of white supremacy with our friends, family, our neighbors, and how dangerous white supremacy really is and how it is a threat to Black people. We can also challenge white supremacy whenever and wherever we see it at. We should not be silent when we see white supremacy being expressed through verbal violence, through political violence, through physical violence. We can challenge white supremacy in our personal lives, in our workplace, in our communities. We can call out white supremacists for their harmful views and actions. We can counter white supremacy. It's not always fisticuffs. Don't get me wrong. It's not always fisticuffs, because I would like to believe this is the last resort, because some people have been calling for a so-called race war. No, we're not calling for a race war, okay? It is what it is. But when you put hands on one of us and it's not one-on-one, and you have to jump, let's say a mid-age, semi-overweight, out of shape Black man, and he getting the best of you, and then the whole boat gotta jump on you. Guess what? When Black people are around, that is how we organize and unify and go get it. See, we're not trying to incite violence. We don't want to just go out and do these acts of violence on people who may disagree with us. Those are the descendants of slave owners. We're not out trying to incite violence, but we are in the power of self-defense. We understand that we are not a majority of people of the population. We are a minority, and we are stronger together. We're powerful together. We're more influential together. So this is how we have to respond. This is how we have to respond, because far too long we have been undermined and hoodwinked and bamboozled, tricked and fooled by the Democratic Party, because they would tell you, the Republicans, they stole the Black vote and they are undermining and they're trying to steal your voting power. And they try to use these fear tactics for Black people to go ahead and vote Democrat in perpetuity. And it's been working ever since the 60s. Well, Ross, you just said the Republicans are racist. Should we go Republican? Hell no. Hell no. Your vote, family, is your bargaining chip in this racist society. Your vote is your bargaining chip. And don't have nobody to fool you talking about if you don't vote, you don't have a choice. What kind of dumb shit is that? That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. If you don't vote, you don't have a choice, or you don't have a voice, rather. That is your voice. Your vote is your voice. And they're telling you each and every election, every 4 years out, to vote for the lesser of two evils. Let me ask you a question. Chicago, has that helped you? Has voting the Democratic Party helped Chicago? Absolutely not, because now the people are speaking out and rising up against illegal immigration. New York, has it helped you voting Democrat 4 years in and 4 years out? DC, my hometown, has it helped us voting 4 years in and 4 years out Democrat? Only because The Democratic Party told you we're the party of democracy. We're the party of the poor people. Well, here's the thing about the party of the poor people, family. Let me help you out with something. In order for Democrats to stay in power and they're the party of the poor people, when do they help you stop from being poor? They don't, because the only way they stay in power is by keeping you poor, by disenfranchising you, by undercutting you, by using buffer groups, by using illegal immigrants to soak up the jobs that Black people once had and no longer have now. Why you think around the entire U.S. we had the highest population and percentage of homelessness? They will like to tell you, oh, Black people are lazy. They must be tired from slavery. That is a white supremacist narrative that they teach and educate and manipulate us into believing. That is because they disenfranchised our community. They didn't only burn our Black Wall streets. They not only sunk in our towns. They didn't allow us to own and operate anything. And anytime they did give us something, more times than not, they took it back. There's very, very few small examples that Black people had the opportunity and the authority to really hone their land, to have their land to be passed down generationally. That is what we need to understand. This is all by design. This was constructed and executed by the system of white supremacy right here in these United States of America. This is why we live in ghettos. This is why we live in hoods. This is why we live in dilapidated and ran down ghettos and things as such. Oh, well, you break down and you run down your own thing. Well, when you take all of our resources and you then complain about the increase in crime, then you fire us without any notice, without any reason, because the network and system of white supremacy want to allow their group to be the majority class of economics in the country. This is why these races are the way they are. But still to this day, the white supremacist narrative that the crime rate in America belongs to the Black criminal class is absolutely false. Check out Professor Black Truth every Friday crime report, and he will show you all the cases. But they will tell you, oh, Black voters have been historically disenfranchised through poll tax and literacy tests and other discriminatory laws. The laws have made it more difficult for Black people to vote. No, it's racism. It's white supremacy. It's discrimination. It's racial bias. That is what it is. It's using other groups to do the bidding of the so-called majority. And as they see their numbers decrease, and Francis Krauss Welsing talked about a white annihilation, okay, through the Black male because of our strong melanation, okay, through sexual intercourse with their women and how we can bleed out and blood out their bloodlines, okay? Because essentially they already know once you have, come on, give me 1 second. Hey, Google, stop. I tell you, they always listen, ain't they? But we also need to understand the dissatisfaction that we have with the Democratic Party, because on one hand, we have some Black voters who say they're dissatisfied with the Democratic Party because they believe that it has not done enough to address issues that are important to them, such as police brutality, mass incarceration, and the most important one of them all, reparations. See, they would like to give you an Emmett Till statue, right? They would like to give you a George Floyd statue. They would like to call the survivors of the Tulsa, Oklahoma up to the White House and do this whole ceremony and give them a pat on the back. But when they go to court and try to sue for reparation, when they go to court and they trying to obtain reparations, denied. Case closed. That is what's occurring in this country. Very similar, different variables, as I stated in the beginning, with South Africa. But family, we have to understand the difference in the economy of both sides of the argument here. So let me get into the video very quickly here. This is this one small clip I'm going to show you. And basically, as the police officer is trying to handcuff one of the people who was in the brawl, a white lady comes over and try to interfere with police activity. And what's ironic here is she's a white woman and this is a black cop. See, police always have a certain amount of distance that you should have as they are conducting police activities, and that you should not intervene. And she's trying to white-splain to him, well, you know, he really wasn't in the fight. He's actually the victim here. He like, hey, let me do my damn job. You see, I'm conducting police activities here. And it wasn't going down like that. And now here's another video of a person speaking out. Shout out goes out to Tariq Nasheed. And this is one of the guys that got his ass whooped being in this brawl.
Well, turns out that 65-year-old man could really fucking throw him.
Absolutely.
Well,
now we're gonna get into the heart of the video here, family. Hopefully, the bandwidth here. Let me see where it is. I had it up here. Give me 1 second, family. Man, these internet issues are driving me nutsoid. Okay. I'm trying to find that video. Give me 1 second. There's a full video out here, and we're gonna look at it in its entirety. That's what we're gonna do. Give me a second here. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second here. Nope. And this is the chair that Tariq Nasheed want to put in the Hidden History Museum. The chair that old boy was welling on them people. Here it is right here. You want to see this one? Oh, okay, they just got the picture. I'm trying to get to the video, family. Hold on. Here we go. Let's listen to this. Let's break this down a little bit. Okay, now as you see, the white assailant started the initial assault to the black security guard. He ran into him and he attacked him. Let's look at this. Now right here, it's a one-on-one altercation. It's a one-on-one altercation. But as you see, the other people in the screen are now closing in. Even though at one point in time, the other gentleman, the non-black gentleman, had the upper hand. But look here. Now they're coming in. Look at this. Look at this. You got 4 or 5 on them just hitting them, and a female. And there's people, okay, there's people running down the ramp, black people running down, they help their brethren. They help their Foundation Black American Family. Where's the guy in the water at? There he is. There he is. There's the maroon. There's the maroon. There's the black. And I heard that this particular guy was a teenager. Okay, and then the black security guard is still dealing with him. Let me see if I can blow this up. Give me a second, fam. Let me see if I can blow this up. Let's look at this. He's trying to see what's happening. The Foundation Black American Family came to reinforce. And then they stayed on the boat. Y'all done messed with the wrong ones. I'm trying to tell you. It's a full-out pandemonium. I don't get through here.
What the hell? Yeah, these white folks don't need black men that work security. We trying to get on the super side for the Marriott.
And let me tell you this, family. I saw a bunch of guys up there with their cell phone up here recording. And I'm like, put down your goddamn cell phone and go help out. Go help out. See, I'm not trying to incite or encourage violence, but when someone's being taken advantage of, when one of our Foundation Black American Family is getting jumped and beaten and brutalized, it's time out for all that other bullshit. Put down your damn cell phone, give it to your girlfriend, give it to your wife, and go handle business. Go handle business. Now, some of you may say, well, there's enough people down there. The more the merrier. The more the merrier. And I heard that they locked up the guy who was wailing on people with the chair. I don't know, they try to get him with assault with a deadly weapon. No, it's self-defense. It's self-defense, goddammit. Yeah, we got to wait till this work up again. I'm going to try to get this fixed, family. I'm going to try to get this fixed. I do apologize. It's taking a mighty long time for this to happen. But while that's charging up,
trying to come through, and the man was telling them to move their boat because the Marriott couldn't dock, so the boat could get off, and everybody on the sipping cycle, we just wait. Why these folks just swung on and jumped on this black man? Baby, the crew member that jumped out the Marriott, baby. They whooping ass, baby. Now come about that boat, baby. They ready to move up. They ready to move up.
I'm gonna stop it right there. I mean, you guys can go check this out on Twitter and other platforms. I'm gonna stop it right there, family. But there are some things that really need to be talked about with the Foundation of Black American Family. And that's just a small example of us gathering our resources, our people, which is our most major resources, together in self-defense, not inciting violence, not going to just harm innocent people, but self-defense. Now that we have this influx that we've always been having, but now that's becoming a problem of these illegal immigrants heading to these so-called black cities, also known as sanctuary cities. While some believe that there is no evidence that illegal immigration has degraded the black community, then why is the black community now speaking out against illegal immigration? Dropping them off in our part of the town with the very meager and limited resources that the black community has. That's what's going on. And another thing, they will put out these studies to show that both legal and illegal immigration has a positive impact on the economy and job market. You know what they don't put out? They don't put out the black homeless rate and how they decimated our communities, unemployed our men, and mass incarcerated them. They don't show how that's hurt. They don't show how that has hurt the economy and job market. For the amount of money that the United States of America spend on feeding and housing and giving apartments and driver's licenses and all these other resources to illegal immigrants, have you ever seen projected reports of how that can assist those black men and women who are foundational to this land? Rehabilitation, shelters, mentorship, training, jobs, and apartments. So we understand that we live in a white supremacist society and that they will rather assist, help, and support people who are foreign to this land rather than the people who built this land. Be one, family. You have a great evening. I'm out.